She was the most beautiful woman in the empire, yet her gambling-addicted father lost her, as a stake, to a billionaire. The highly decorated naval captain, Bastion, was dragged to a casino by his comrades after the victory banquet ended. The group was drawn by the sound of an argument coming from the corner. The middle-aged man known as the Beggar Duke was kneeling on the ground and pleading desperately. "I still have a stake. I can keep gambling. Everyone knows how beautiful my daughter is, so let me play one more round. Just one." The adjutant accompanying Bastion cut him off. "Are you saying you really intend to use your daughter as a stake?" The man hesitated for a moment. For some reason, he was absurdly confident that he would definitely win the next round. "That's right. My daughter is the most beautiful woman in the empire. She is absolutely the most valuable stake." After receiving the Beggar Duke's assurance, the adjutant suddenly chuckled, his tone full of mockery. "I think this will be a very interesting game. What do you all think?" The group went into the VIP room and sat down. Bastion drew first. It was a pretty good hand. At the gambling table, there is only ever one winner. As everyone's expressions gradually turned uglier, Bastion revealed his final hole card, the spade. The outcome was decided. The Beggar Duke's face was full of disbelief. He had actually lost again. The onlookers around them began to jeer, joking that the Beggar Duke had gained himself a son-in-law this time, as the man looked utterly pathetic. Bastion truly could not bear to watch any longer. He stood up to leave, but the colleague behind him reminded him not to forget to collect his winnings. Hearing this, the Beggar Duke's body suddenly trembled. He actually grabbed Bastion. "Please give me one more chance. This time I definitely can." Mouth. Bastion turned back, cold fury and warning rising in his eyes. The man was instantly intimidated by that aura. Bastion shook him off in one motion. Knowing his temperament, his colleague signaled the guards to bring in the stake the man had spoken of. Who would have thought the man would still try to go back on his word? With a gloomy face, he staggered forward. "Do you know who I am? If you dare treat me like this, you'll be asking for serious trouble. If you dare lay a hand on my daughter, and this reaches the Emperor's ears, none of you will get away unscathed. What flows in my daughter's veins is royal blood." Meanwhile, Odette had no idea what her father had done, and had just coaxed her younger sister to sleep. She was even planning to sort out a list of daily necessities. Life was growing more and more difficult by the day because of the debts her father had incurred. Their circumstances were becoming increasingly strained, and even barely maintaining 3 meals a day still depended on the allowance distributed by the royal family. Odette's late mother had once been the most favored eldest princess of the late emperor of the empire. Her mother had originally been meant to marry the crown prince of another country, but on a certain night in the 3rd month before the wedding, she eloped with the fallen Duke Dissen. This scandal shocked the entire empire. The emperor not only announced that he would sever ties with her, but also stripped that imperial princess of all her status and property. He expelled the two from the country, and they instantly became wanderers poorer than commoners. But even so, her mother always believed that one day they would return to the royal family. So, in preparation for that day, she taught Odette all the etiquette and knowledge a noble should possess. And she told her, no matter the circumstances, always maintain your grace. Although Odette learned all of it, her mother, until the very end, never got what she wished for. A rapid knocking at the door interrupted Odette's thoughts. The man outside told her that her father had incurred enormous debts at the casino. "Please come with me." Although Odette was shocked inside, she still tried hard to remain calm. Before leaving, she did not forget to put her appearance in order. This was what her mother had always taught her. No matter when, one must not lose even the most basic grace. Finally, after putting on a black veil, she was ready. "Let's go at once." At this time in the casino, the gambling-addicted father had finally panicked, crying and begging them to spare his daughter. She was a child of royal blood. If they really brought her there, things would become a huge scandal. But his words had no effect at all, because the first person to use his daughter as a gambling stake had been this spineless father himself. At this moment, Bastion's colleague could not help teasing him. "You're about to meet His Majesty's niece. How do you feel?" Bastion's face was full of disdain. "You really believe that man's words?" The next second, the door was pushed open, and the guard sent to handle the matter reported, "His daughter has already been brought here." Wow. Everyone immediately looked toward the doorway in anticipation. The woman wearing a black veil slowly stepped down. She came to a steady stop in front of the man. "Please tell me how much my father owes." Her cool voice made the air seem to freeze for a moment. One adjutant stepped forward to explain. "You've probably misunderstood. We didn't call you here to make you repay his debt for him." Hearing this, Odette turned neatly and moved to take her father away. "In that case, if there is nothing else, we will take our leave." However, the adjutant spoke again to stop her. "That won't do. Your father may leave, but you must stay, because he lost you as a gambling stake. And over there, that is the one who won you from your father. Do you understand now what this is about?" Odette's expression instantly darkened. Through the veil, she looked at her father. He was kneeling on the ground with his head lowered, apologizing over and over. He had thought he could win big. Odette unconsciously clenched her fists. She secretly glanced at the winner's clothing, a magnificent and immaculate white uniform. They were naval officers, and presumably all from the upper class. For a moment, She felt at a loss, and escape was obviously impossible. Odette gritted her teeth. In that case, she could only use that method. Odette straightened her back. She strode up to the blonde man. "Do you not feel ashamed? You are the navy that protects the empire, yet you took part in this kind of gambling match that treats a person as a stake." Hearing this, Bastion's gaze darkened slightly. In a place like this, talking about law and morality is probably not a very clever approach. Odette did not retreat in the slightest. So, upholding a soldier's honor depends on the time and place. At that moment, Bastion suddenly felt some admiration for the girl before him. Even while being at an obvious disadvantage, she was still able to remain rational. She could even turn the accusation back on them. Then Odette's tone became sincere. "Please forgive my father's offense. I will repay all his debts on his behalf." Bastion lowered his eyes and calmly uttered 3 words: "I refuse. And now it should be my turn to set the terms. After all, you are my spoils of war. Though I have no interest in either money or you, I can't very well win and still come out at a loss, can I? Lift your veil and let me see your face. Then this matter will end here." That powerful sense of oppression made Odette take an involuntary step back. The colleagues watching the spectacle at the side kept egging things on. Bastion only wanted to resolve this troublesome matter as quickly as possible. Odette asked hesitantly, "Will you really keep your word?" The corners of the man's lips lifted slightly. Of course. After a long while, Odette raised her hand and lifted the veil. "One more confirmation. Please be sure to honor our agreement." As Odette revealed her true face, the entire casino fell silent. The girl's jet black hair cascaded down. Her exquisite face was as perfect as a doll's, and her emerald green eyes were especially breathtaking. Even Bastion was stunned by her beauty. That gambling addict was a complete liar, yet no one had expected that his daughter would truly possess beauty capable of toppling a nation. After returning home with the father who had nearly gambled away his daughter, he still behaved as if nothing had happened and simply went straight to sleep. Seeing this, her younger sister was furious. Daily drinking and debt were one thing, but he had actually done such a thing to her sister. "Can't we tell His Majesty the Emperor about this? After all, elder sister is also the Emperor's niece." Hearing this, Odette shot to her feet. No. She knew very well that if her father's evil deeds became public, they might not even be able to keep the royal relief money. Odette also understood that the Emperor would not help them, because to him, the existence of herself and her father was proof of the crime that had ruined his sister's life. Meanwhile, in Alden, the coastal city, known as the backyard of the powerful, it was purchased by the rising giant that monopolized the empire's railway business, the Clavis family. The moment Bastion got out of the carriage, his Aunt Maria hurried up to him with a flustered expression. She had heard that Bastion had just inherited a large fortune from his maternal family and reminded him to make good use of it. After all, no one knew better than he did why his grandfather had handed the property over to him. Hearing this, Bastion only smiled and played dumb. His aunt did not continue the topic and instead told him that his half-brother Franz was about to announce his engagement, and the bride was the legitimate daughter of Count Klein. Bastion's gaze paused slightly. That younger brother of his, because his mother was of noble birth, had long ago been designated by their status climbing father as the heir. Bastion could not help but laugh softly. Father must be overjoyed that his youngest son can marry a young lady from the upper class. Taking the opportunity, his aunt reminded Bastion that he too should find a bride as soon as possible, one who could become his right hand. Bastion seemed thoughtful, then readily agreed. His aunt smiled helplessly. "But I must remind you, you had better not choose Princess Isabel. She will drag you into hell." The rumor that the eldest princess was infatuated with Bastion had long spread throughout the entire social circle. Bastion vaguely recalled his time at the military academy, when that princess who had come with His Majesty had indeed been a rather burdensome memory. He shook his head helplessly. "I have no thoughts whatsoever about that princess." But his aunt reminded him not to think too simply. The Emperor had seen with his own eyes how his sister, blinded by love, had ruined her whole life in the end. If he connected that to the idea that his own daughter might repeat the same tragedy, it would be hard for him to remain rational. Hearing this, Bastion suddenly thought again of the beggar duke he had met the day before yesterday, and the daughter of royal blood he had spoken of. Seeing him lost in thought, his aunt interrupted him. Bastion pulled himself back to the present. "Please rest assured, what you fear will never happen." Meanwhile, in the Imperial palace, the Empress was worrying over her love-struck daughter. Her daughter, who clearly already had a fiancé, still treasured the photo of another man as if it were a precious possession. The Emperor had originally not thought this was such a serious matter, but the Empress brought up his sister, who had eloped. The former eldest princess, Hilary, had also once had a fiancé, but she had been blinded by love, ruined the engagement, and in doing so ruined her life. The Emperor's expression darkened instantly when he heard this. Realizing that she had overstepped, the Empress hurriedly explained. She was only worried that their daughter would repeat the same mistake. After a moment of thought, the Emperor seriously assured the Empress. Although Bastion was indeed outstanding, he would never become the princess's partner. Mentioning Princess Hilary, the Empress naturally then brought up her daughter, Odette. Duke Dissen had caused too many problems. If this continued, something would happen to Odette sooner or later. His Majesty kept a cold face, unwilling to concern himself with the affairs of that beggar duke. His sister was already gone, and whatever became of the Dissen family had nothing to do with him. But the Empress continued to persuade him. Dissen was indeed hateful, but can your Majesty truly bear to watch Hilary's only daughter walk toward misfortune? A trace of hesitation flashed through the Emperor's eyes. The Empress immediately added, "Let us find Odette a suitable marriage match. For example, Bastian Clavis, whom Isabel is currently infatuated with. Though lowborn, he is a rising noble who has rendered great military service to your Majesty." The Empress believed that although Bastian was not of high birth, he was both the son of one of the Empire's richest families and a hero of the Empire. More importantly, if Bastian became Odette's husband, Isabel would have no choice but to completely give up that feeling. "To protect our daughter, and also to protect your sister's daughter, please have Bastian and Odette marry." In this world, marriage was like a transaction. By marrying Bastian's mother, his father obtained enormous assets. Afterward, he remarried a noblewoman, elevating his own status and position. His father's own experience made Bastian remembered deeply. If marriage was destined to be a transaction, then he would use that tool to become the greatest winner. And the woman before him, Sandrine Belia, the daughter of the richest man and also the only daughter of Duke Laville. Although she had already married a few years ago and become a countess, Bastian knew that she would soon divorce and return to her family as if nothing had happened. And the powerful Laville family was precisely the stepping stone Bastian needed to cross class boundaries. But the marriage market changed in an instant, and to maintain trust with Sandrine, he had to reveal his trump card. He suddenly leaned close to Sandrine. "I hope you can regain your freedom soon." Sandrine had long since developed an understanding with this marriage partner, but she was still puzzled by his sudden fake smile. Only when she suddenly caught sight of the figure behind him did she realize it was Bastian's stepmother. She instantly understood his sudden intimacy. If the son of the former wife climbed higher than her own son by allying with a more distinguished noble family, she would surely be jealous. "You even calculated this kind of thing into your plans. Don't you get tired?" After the two confirmed their relationship of mutual trust, Sandrine did not linger any longer. Bastian walked to the balcony to get some air. The bright moonlight quietly spilled down, yet the man suddenly became a little distracted. For some reason, he thought of that stunningly beautiful girl, the one who had not shed a single tear even at the very end. Bastian pulled back his thoughts. Why would he think of that insignificant woman? That was nothing like him. His aunt came over in alarm. "Bastian, why are you here?" "For you. The seaside is not a pleasant place at all. Have you forgotten? You nearly drowned in the sea once." Several years earlier, young Bastian had been chased to the cliff's edge by vicious dogs. To escape their jaws, he threw himself into the sea. Fortunately, his aunt saw him from afar, and Bastian barely escaped with his life. His aunt brought the badly injured Bastian home, intending to thoroughly investigate what was obviously an attempted murder. But his father unexpectedly brushed it off as an accident, seeing with her own eyes how indifferent her brother was toward Bastian. She even suspected that all of it had been orchestrated by him from the start. His aunt knew full well that Bastian could not be allowed to remain there any longer, so she contacted his mother's family, the Iris family, and had him taken away. Although driving away the former wife's child was exactly the result her brother most wanted, she did not regret the decision, because only those who survive have the right to speak of revenge. Now Bastian had grown up, but his aunt still could not help worrying. "Actually, I do not like that noble young lady who is preparing for divorce, but I have to admit, she really is the most suitable bride candidate at present. If you can gain the backing of the Laville family, your father will certainly feel a tremendous threat." Bastian's expression softened a little. "Thank you for your understanding." But in the end, his aunt still did not forget to remind him that even so, there was no need to completely rule out other advantageous options. Just in case, you must always be prepared. Meanwhile, a noblewoman sent by the palace sought out Odette. She was considered a distant relative from her mother's side. Upon seeing Odette's face, Madame Thierry could not help sighing. "Why do you have to look so much like your father? Though I suppose this is the only contribution he could make to his children. After all, Duke Dissen's only merit is that face of his." Madame Thierry got straight to the point. "Odette, someone has proposed marriage to you. This can also be considered a groom personally chosen for you by His Majesty the Emperor." Hearing this, Odette's heart jolted. How could someone suddenly come to propose to her? Madame Thierry could not be bothered to beat around the bush. "The Emperor wants you to marry. The man is Bastian Clavis." Odette was full of confusion. Thierry continued, "Because Princess Isabel is currently obsessed with him. But although Bastian looks glamorous, in essence he is only a low-born commoner, unworthy of becoming the eldest princess's husband. Therefore, His Majesty has ordered that Bastian marry his own niece, that is, you. This will completely cut off Isabel's hopes." Madame Thierry earnestly said to Odette, "Although Bastian is not a noble, he comes from a wealthy family, and recently, he has also become a naval hero praised by everyone." However, after hearing all this, Odette only kept her head lowered and said nothing. After a long silence, "Then can you convey my wishes to His Majesty for me? Can you convey my wishes to His Majesty for me?" Madame Thierry's gaze instantly darkened at this, and she understood at once that Odette did not want to cooperate. Your wishes, at a glance. She understood that Odette did not want to cooperate. Do you think this marriage is asking for your opinion? This is an order. Odette raised her voice. Why should I accept such an unfair demand? Because you are the daughter of Hilary and Duke Dyson. Do you still not understand? Odette's heart suddenly sank. So His Majesty the Emperor meant for her to atone for the mistakes her parents had made? Madame Terry sighed. This can also be considered an opportunity, even if you have never thought about getting married. You, who now live worse than a maid, surely cannot sacrifice your entire life for that spineless father. Bastian is absolutely a decent marriage prospect. Odette paused, still wanting to say something more, but Madame Terry interrupted her. She touched Odette's face, and her expression softened somewhat. Don't think about anything else. Give it a try. Who knows? Perhaps Bastian is the sort of man whose eyes can be blinded by extraordinary beauty. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Bastian had just returned to his residence. He was informed by the butler that there was a letter signed Odette. Bastian frowned slightly, not quite understanding. The butler then explained that she was His Majesty the Emperor's niece. Bastian furrowed his brow, only then recalling what had happened a few days earlier. Marquis Demer had once conveyed a message to him. His Majesty wanted to marry Hilary's daughter to him. That is, the daughter of the former eldest princess who had been expelled from the royal family. For His Majesty to make such an absurd decision was probably still because of Princess Isabel. Bastian felt a headache coming on. The engagement he had planned for so long was just about to succeed. Yet suddenly his plans had been disrupted. He could not let so many years of scheming go to waste like this. For now, he had to give the Emperor due respect first, then end this relationship in a reasonable manner. He picked up the envelope. His gaze fell on the lower right corner, where a long full name was written. Bastian suddenly found it a little amusing. This woman, even her name is long enough to give one a headache. A few days later, Odette received Bastian's reply. She had carefully filled an entire page with a self-introduction, yet he brushed it all aside with just a few perfunctory pleasantries. She could not help complaining inwardly that he was outrageously rude. Although unwilling, this was after all the Emperor's command, so she could only obey. Odette felt that before the palace ball began, she had to have a proper talk with that man, and Bastian happened to be thinking the same thing. To cooperate with the marriage the Emperor had forcefully thrust upon him, he intended to sign a contract marriage with Odette as soon as possible, and after Princess Isabel successfully married the crown prince of another country, he would divorce Odette. Only this way would it not affect his plan to marry the only daughter of Duke Laville. A year later, Bastian had arranged the meeting place with Odette in advance. He only hoped that Odette would be someone easy to talk to. In the luxurious restaurant, Odette arrived as promised. An hour had passed, yet the other party still had not shown up. Odette even began to suspect that he was not coming at all. At that moment, a man in military uniform walked in through the entrance. Odette raised her eyes. She knew it was him. The man slowly approached, but Odette felt a jolt in her heart. She even suspected that she had seen wrong. How could this be possible? The man she had seen at the casino that day, the one who had treated her as a wager, was actually the Imperial hero people spoke of. At this moment, Bastian was equally shocked. Could it really be such a coincidence? The wager he had won that night was actually his future marriage partner? He could not help but smile meaningfully. Taking off his hat, he introduced himself. I am Bastian Clavis. It seems that this is not the first time we have met, Odette. Odette lowered her head, a trace of anger in her tone. Did you know about this from the very beginning? Bastian took a sip of tea unhurriedly. Unfortunately, I do not have such a vivid imagination. Who could have imagined that the father who used his daughter as a gambling stake at the casino would turn out to be a duke, and that what I won there would actually be His Majesty's niece? Odette could clearly sense his hostility. In fact, the moment she met Bastian's eyes, she had already understood that he looked down on her and did not want to accept this forced marriage either. On this point, they had reached a mutual understanding. After gathering herself for a moment, Odette spoke. Captain, I hope you can refuse this engagement. However, faced with Odette's request, Bastian refused with a smile. Of course, Odette did not understand his intentions. In order to show his loyalty to His Majesty the Emperor, he intended to accept this marriage and openly stated his plan. He wanted to put on an act with Odette, and once Princess Isabel was married, they would divorce immediately. Odette was deeply shocked when she heard this. This was clearly deceiving the royal family. Bastian's voice turned slightly cold. Please do not misunderstand. As long as we look like a couple preparing for marriage, the Emperor will not care whether it is an act. And as an officer, Bastian had to obey the Emperor's command unconditionally. Odette's heart sank. That was indeed true. She was nothing more than a shield the Emperor was using to protect the princess. After a moment of silence, Odette spoke again. Do you not care about the rumors during this time? They may damage your reputation. Bastian was completely indifferent to this. In any case, he had never intended to act like a gentleman. As his words fell, Odette seemed somewhat hesitant. Bastian asked in return, of course, if you mind, you can personally step forward and refuse. After all, compared with me, His Majesty would certainly respect his niece's opinion more. Although Bastian said this, he knew very well that if Odette had come here, She must also have had another purpose. Seeing that she remained silent, Bastian did not want to keep wasting time. Just as he stood up to leave, Odette stopped him. She reached out and handed him an envelope. Bastian's gaze paused slightly. "What is this? Are you planning to pay for my tea?" Odette nodded generously. "That's right. I don't want to drink your tea for free." Looking at her utterly serious expression, Bastian froze for a moment, then burst into laughter. He turned and put his military cap back on. "You should save that money, or use it to subsidize Duke Dissen, so that he will not lose you in a place like that again." Odette asked in confusion. "What do you mean by that?" Bastian's smile faded. "That day, I was simply lucky enough to be the one there. But if something like this happens again, you may not be so fortunate next time." Odette was stunned and stood there blankly, watching Bastian gradually walk away. She understood that this man held her in extreme contempt, but even so, she still had to carry out the Emperor's orders. Perhaps Bastian's proposal really was an effective method. Odette returned home full of troubled thoughts. As soon as she reached the door, she heard arguing coming from inside. She hurriedly pushed the door open and went in, only to see her father shouting that he wanted to snatch away the private savings she and her younger sister had put aside. He even resorted to hitting them. In desperation, Odette pulled her younger sister behind her in one motion, and her father's slap landed heavily on her face. When he realized he had struck Odette, her father's expression immediately became uneasy. Odette's voice was icy. "Please do not lay a hand on Tyro again, or I will not endure it any longer." Her father guiltily shot back. "Not endure it any longer? And what can you do if you don't?" Odette walked up to him, raised her head, and warned him coldly. "If that happens, then the thing you fear most will come to pass. No one knows better than you do. Without me, the royal family would never continue issuing the Dissen family its relief payments." Her father no longer dared to shout. He could only turn away and leave in frustration. Odette knew very well that she herself was her father's weak point. Without her, it would mean cutting off his last source of income. She and her half-sister had depended on each other until now, and Tyra was very important to her. She also did not want to lose the life she had worked so hard to maintain until now. Odette told herself that in order to protect these few things she still had, she could not be weak. Just keep enduring. Not only her father, but also that contract marriage meant to protect the princess. Bastian received an invitation to a royal ball for the first time, not because of the military merits he had rendered to the empire, but because of the arranged marriage he had just accepted. Even though he knew this was a test from the emperor, still, to receive such a reward, Bastian thought it was not bad at all. In that case, that woman must have received an invitation as well. Thinking of Odette's innocent yet stubborn appearance, Bastian could not help but chuckle softly, and for some reason began to look forward to it. In what manner would Odette appear at the ball? This was a grand royal banquet. Any noble with even a little standing would appear here. And the moment Bastian entered, he was immediately swarmed by young aristocrats. Bastian moved through social occasions with ease, but this scene dealt a heavy blow to his half-brother. Prance had never expected it. Other nobles were one thing, but even Duke Heherd, a favorite by His Majesty's side, actually knew him. Prance's expression instantly turned ugly. Bastian was clearly nothing more than a commoner who had been cast out by the Clavis family. At that moment, Bastian saw his younger brother in the corner. He walked over and greeted him politely, then offered his regards to his fiancée standing behind him. But Prance, full of jealousy and resentment, only wanted to put his older brother in his place. How does it feel to enter the Imperial Palace for the first time? Bastian looked composed. It is truly thrilling, a tremendous honor, just as it was for you back then. Prance found himself speechless for a moment. Was Bastian mocking him? The next instant, a guard announced loudly, "The Dissen ducal house, Odette, has arrived." Prance was delighted. That woman had come, the one who could ruin his brother's image, that unpresentable bride. But when Odette slowly walked in beside the countess, Prance could no longer smile. The young woman wore an evening gown and carried herself with graceful poise. Her face was so exquisite that not a single flaw could be found. Her emerald green eyes were utterly captivating. Every noble present was astonished by her beauty. Prance's eyes were full of disbelief. He had thought she was a bad hand the emperor had forced on his brother, but she was stunningly beautiful. At the sight of Odette, Bastian strode toward her. The banquet hall instantly fell silent, as if at this moment, they were the true protagonists here. Their eyes met. After a long moment, Bastian gave a gentleman's bow. "Come, my Odette." The ball officially began, and melodious music filled the entire hall. Before the emperor and empress, the nobles began to dance one after another. Prance held his fiancée, but his gaze secretly fell on Bastian. A perfect match. They looked so well suited to one another. "I thought you would not come to the ball." Odette answered neither humbly nor arrogantly. "His Majesty's command carries great significance for me." "Then may I take that to mean that you are willing to act out the charade with me?" Odette lowered her head and did not answer. But Bastian knew very well that after tonight, Odette's reputation would be utterly ruined. Yet even though he clearly understood this, he still chose to attend the ball, and that also meant she wanted something from the emperor. Thinking this, Bastion found it even more interesting. He deliberately tightened his hold on her hand and spun sharply. The sudden movement made Odette stumble. Bastion smoothly caught her in his arms. It seemed that in this performance, theirs was a relationship of mutual use, each taking what they needed. Leaning close to Odette, Bastion whispered, "I'll take that as your silent consent. In that case, we might as well act more thoroughly and completely satisfy His Majesty the Emperor." In fact, even before the ball had begun, Odette had already made her decision. On the way to the palace, looking at the young woman who was about to give up her own happiness for the sake of the relief money, the Countess felt somewhat helpless. Poor Odette. No matter how calm she pretended to be on the surface, she must surely feel uneasy about stepping into an unfamiliar world. Walking through the long corridor of the palace, through the floor-to-ceiling windows, one could see the garden in full bloom. Odette stopped walking. This place was as beautiful as her mother had once described. When she was little, whenever the palace was mentioned, her mother would always become especially excited. But in the end, she would always cover her face and cry. Odette had never understood since childhood how her mother, who had betrayed her family and country for a man like her father, could be so thoroughly wrong, yet still failed to see reality, living in fantasy and wavering between hope and fear. After love had shattered, she began longing for that life she could never recover again. Odette knew what she wanted. She would never live the way her mother had. She knew how important money was to life. Although she would not sacrifice her reputation and dignity for money, she would not put an empty name above everything else either. Her engagement to Bastion was tied to the support payments issued by the royal family. So even knowing full well that Bastion was filled with disdain for her, she would still accompany this man in acting out this play to the end. So at the ball, at the moment Bastion drew close, Odette closed her eyes. Before the eyes of the princess, her younger sister, Odette was about to be with the man her younger sister admired. But what exactly? Although she had already prepared herself to risk everything, at the final moment, Odette still turned her head aside. Bastion paused only slightly, then immediately leaned close to Odette's ear and whispered, "Don't ruin the act. The most important audience member is watching us right now." At this moment, on the second floor, Princess Isabel drained the red wine in her glass in one gulp and glared viciously at the two below, wishing she could tear Odette apart on the spot. Odette lowered her head, grasped Bastion's arm, and continued dancing. Bastion looked at her, somewhat ill at ease. "Your jewelry and gown are both beautiful tonight. Thank you for the compliment." Odette replied calmly on the surface, though inwardly, she wondered what Bastion meant to say. The next moment, Bastion smiled. "After tonight, you'll have to go back and return them, won't you?" Odette paused. She had once heard that Bastion had become an officer only after graduating from a prestigious academy. He had clearly received the finest education, yet now he was saying something so rude to her. Clearly, Bastion was doing it on purpose. Since she had no bottom line left to hide anyway, she might as well be frank about it. "Yes, I do have to return them. After all, my money is only enough to rent them from the shop for one day. But you needn't worry, the money I have left is enough to cover these things." Odette's frank manner surprised Bastion somewhat. "It seems Miss Odette is wealthier than I expected. I have you to thank for that. When we last met, you helped me save quite a bit on tea expenses, so I didn't have to worry about the jewelry and clothes needed for this performance." Odette smiled brightly, but Bastion froze for a moment, then turned his head away after a brief silence. Soon after, he laughed as well. "This is the first time I've seen you smile. I'm glad you were able to spend the money on something meaningful." But Odette felt that this way of doing things was only natural. If she happened to owe Bastion a favor, then naturally the money should be used on him. Hearing her say that, Bastion suddenly felt that next time he ought to treat Odette to an even grander meal, so that she would have more funds left in her hands. Odette immediately refused, because she did not want to take on a debt beyond her means. Bastion found it somewhat amusing and asked in return, "Are you afraid I'll sell you to settle the debt?" Odette smiled faintly. "That is hard to say. Judging from the day we first met, I find it difficult to trust you." Bastion's eyes darkened slightly. He knew that every noble was proud and stubborn. In this regard, Odette was no less than anyone else. Her unwillingness to lose, and the noble bearing in her bones, and her upright neck if. Before Bastion could continue the thought, a commotion behind him interrupted his train of thought. He turned around and saw Princess Isabel striding over in anger. Her face was flushed red from wine, her eyes unfocused, and she completely ignored the greetings of the other nobles. She stormed up to the two of them and glared fiercely at Odette beside Bastion. She suddenly raised her hand and with a sharp smack slapped Odette across the face. "Stay away from Bastion, you disgusting beggar." Isabel had liked Bastion for 6 whole years. She knew her parents were forcing Bastion to marry that beggar's daughter only to make her give up completely. Marrying the daughter of a fallen princess really could suppress those rumors about the Imperial princess. Bastion had accepted the Emperor's arrangement because he was a blindly loyal soldier. But how could Isabel stand by and watch him suffer such injustice because of an Imperial command? Yet Isabel had always believed that now she alone could understand Bastion. Bastion must love her. Yet she had never been able to convey her feelings, simply because of lowly blood. He had to dance with such a terrible woman, a woman willing to sell herself for money. The moment Isabel saw Odette's face clearly, the fury in her heart burned even hotter. She rushed in front of Odette and raised her hand, delivering another resounding slap. "I order you to leave Bastion, you beggar's daughter. I know you appeared here only to escape your poor and miserable life. You truly are a shameless woman." As Isabel's movements grew more violent, the necklace Odette had borrowed was also torn apart, and gemstones rolled across the floor one after another. Bastion immediately stepped in front of her. "Please calm down, Your Imperial Highness." But how could Isabel possibly calm down? "She's seducing you for money." Isabel's voice was nearly hysterical. "Isn't what she's doing basically that of a high-class prostitute?" Her shrill voice echoed throughout the entire hall. Yet Odette's expression did not change. She still appeared remarkably calm. She told herself this was nothing more than a princess blinded by love, trying to hurt her with the cruelest words possible. Odette calmly picked up the gemstones scattered all over the floor. Isabel could not possibly imagine what kind of life she lived. Even when humiliated like this, she knew clearly what mattered most at this moment. She was merely obeying the Emperor's command. Only after gathering up every scattered gemstone did Odette slowly rise to her feet. Such a calm reaction only made Isabel even angrier. "Bastion, look at her. This woman even borrows her jewelry. All she cares about is money." But when Odette heard this, she merely cast Isabel a faint glance. Then she turned around, held out the gemstones to an attendant, and said, "Please keep these for me until the end of the ball." The Imperial princess, repeatedly ignored, was completely enraged and stepped forward again, wanting to teach her a lesson. But Bastion raised a hand and stopped her. "Your Highness, you're drunk." Isabel looked up at the man she adored. She only felt that Bastion's expression was so sorrowful. He must love her too. She suddenly threw her arms around Bastion. "I love you. I really love you so much." A strong smell of alcohol rushed at him, and he could only remind her helplessly, "Your Highness, please calm down." At this scene, the Empress on the second floor was full of disbelief. The entire banquet hall fell deathly silent. Only after a long while did the nobles begin whispering again in low voices. Princess Isabel had also followed Hilary's old path. But Isabel could not hear any of those voices at all at this moment, for she was immersed in her own fantasies and unable to pull herself out of them. She even raised a hand to touch Bastion's face. "It's time to prove our love to the whole world." Who knew that in the very next second, Bastion coldly slapped her hand away. The man's aura instantly turned sharp and intimidating, and Isabel froze. Isabel froze. "I've gone this far, and you still want to keep hiding your feelings?" Even when the crown prince rushed downstairs and forcibly pulled her away, Isabel still could not accept the outcome. She was dragged away, yet she still cried out, "Don't you love me? Why?" Only after watching Isabel leave did Bastion finally let out a sigh of relief. He then turned to look at Odette behind him. "Odette, are you all right?" Odette brushed aside the strands of hair that had fallen down, and at this moment she was composed and elegant, as though she were the true princess of noble and pure blood. Then she lifted her skirt and slowly walked over. Bastion's eyes were filled with astonishment. Such vicious insults had failed to shake Odette's expression in the slightest. She had even wanted to finish this dance with him gracefully. At this moment, Odette also reminded Bastion of how she had looked that day in the casino when she was nearly sold by her father to pay off a debt. Just as fearless as she was today. Bastion had to admit that this was a woman of extraordinary courage. The Odette standing before him at this moment was so dazzling that it was impossible to look away. Even though her face was pale, she was still forcing herself to preserve the last of her dignity. For the sake of Odette's pride alone, Bastion ought to repay her with a sincere gesture. This scene left all the nobles present utterly stunned. These two had clearly just gone through something like that, yet now they seemed completely unaffected. But even though they appeared calm on the surface, only Bastion could feel that Odette was trembling. Looking closely, her complexion was also very poor. Cold sweat was sliding down her cheeks. Odette was already close to her limit. She staggered and nearly fell, but fortunately Bastion caught her in time. "Hold on. You don't want others laughing at you either, do you?" That was right. No matter when, Odette had to preserve at least the most basic dignity. She clutched Bastion's hand tightly until the ball ended. She did not show the slightest sign of losing composure. Bastion slowly led Odette toward the Countess. At last, this agonizing ball came to an end. The Countess was also surprised by Bastion's performance. Noble etiquette seemed to come to him with effortless ease. It was hard to believe that he was someone stepping into the Imperial Palace for the first time. "Did you enjoy spending the evening with Odette? To be able to spend this ball with someone as elegant as she is was my honor." It was the expected, impeccable reply. After parting with Bastion, the Countess turned to look at Odette. And now that Odette had finally relaxed, her face had already turned ashen. The Countess let out a soft sigh. After suffering such humiliation, how could she possibly be unaffected? She looked at Odette, who had endured until now, and gently patted her back, soothing her. "You did very well. Absolutely perfectly." This sudden praise, however, made Odette feel satisfied for the first time. "Thank you, Lady Terry." A few days later, Odette received another invitation from the Countess. At the upscale restaurant, Just after sitting down, the very first thing Odette said was to ask the lady about the condition of that necklace. Odette felt that Lady Terry had lent her the expensive jewelry out of trust, yet she had failed to protect it, and that made her deeply upset. Hearing this, Lady Terry set down the champagne in her hand. I've never liked this kind of grand-sounding talk, but to her surprise, Odette became serious. If the necklace can't be repaired, I can compensate you for it. These words surprised Lady Terry once again. Compensate me? With what? That day's accident had originally been Princess Isabel's fault. Odette planned to report the matter to His Majesty the Emperor. Even if she herself was insignificant in his eyes, Lady Terry was an elder of the Imperial family, and His Majesty would not slight her. Lady Terry smiled faintly. This was indeed the simplest and most effective method for Odette. His Majesty would certainly deal with the mistake his daughter had made. When the jewelry shop sends over the repair bill, I'll send it into the palace and have them reimburse it. Odette still could not help confirming it once more. It really can be repaired? Lady Terry nodded. We also have to thank you for picking up the gemstones scattered all over the floor. Joy rose in Odette's eyes. That's really wonderful. Lady Terry could not help feeling that Odette was a bit slow-witted. She did not know how to ingratiate herself with men, yet she smiled so brightly in front of her instead. The two talked a little longer, when suddenly the Admiral walked over. What a coincidence. Lady Terry had not expected to see you here either. Odette looked up and saw that it was not only the Admiral approaching, but also Bastion. And Odette's eyes met his. Both of them were stunned for a moment, for this chance meeting was obviously a little too much of a coincidence. Then Lady Terry naturally invited them, since we've run into each other here. Let's dine together. Only then did Odette understand the real purpose of this invitation. This was the most popular restaurant in the busiest district, and the time was the liveliest hour of Saturday noon. Combined with the most conspicuous central seats, anyone could tell that this had been deliberately arranged, so that all the nobles in the entire social circle could see. The second performance staged by Bastion and Odette together. During lunch, the Admiral warmly invited Odette, in her capacity as Captain Bastion's companion, to attend the upcoming Royal Polo Mixer. Hearing this, Odette already understood that the Emperor was eager to let more people see their relationship in order to cover up the scandal Princess Isabel had caused at the ball. From the moment this contract marriage began, there would only be more and more social events like this. Odette knew that she had nowhere left to run. If that was the case, then she might as well see it through to the end. If it is an invitation from the Admiral, then I would naturally be delighted. Odette would accept all of this calmly. As long as she did not give her true heart to Bastion, this marriage would not be able to hurt her in the slightest. After lunch, the Admiral and Lady Terry found an excuse to leave together. As for Bastion and Odette, they had to begin the next step of their fake date, so that more people would see them appearing as a pair. So the two of them could only continue to play along. Miss Odette, is there anywhere you'd like to go? Odette hesitated for a moment. I'm very sorry, but I'm still not very familiar with these things. I'm very sorry, but I'm still not very familiar with these things. Bastion did not understand. What kind of things? The kinds of things young lovers do. So please arrange it as you see fit. Hearing this, a trace of slyness flashed through Bastion's eyes. After thinking for a moment, since that's the case, do you like paintings? A moment later, the two appeared outside the art museum with the heaviest foot traffic. The gazes of the social elite all turned toward them. Bastion immediately realized that he had chosen the right place. Before they had even gone inside, it suddenly began to snow. As snowflakes drifted down, Odette could not help but let out a soft cry of surprise. She turned and ran toward an open space. Standing in the snow with both hands raised, her eyes shimmered with faint delight and wonder. The scene was so beautiful that she looked like an angel fallen into the mortal world. Watching her back, Bastion could not help but marvel. He had thought he had gotten himself entangled with a troublesome woman, but unexpectedly, Odette had brought him surprise after surprise. Thanks to her, he had drawn widespread attention as soon as he entered high society, and had also taken the opportunity to solve the problem of that love-crazed princess. As he watched snowflakes fall little by little onto Odette's forehead, Bastion took off his military cap and walked toward her. Then, he gently placed it on her head. Although this disrupted his own plans, at this moment Bastion felt that this truly was a contract marriage capable of elevating his standing. All right, it's time for a performance. Their first date had been a show put on for all the nobles to watch. Looking at that beautiful girl letting the heavy snow gather in her hair, Bastion decided that he would make full use of this woman until she lost all her value, just as he had expected. With the help of this carefully arranged date, news of the two of them spread rapidly through the social circle. Bastion also completely rid himself of the rumors involving Princess Isabel. The nobles' discussions rose and fell one after another. Odette merely stood quietly in place without saying a word. Only when Bastion walked over and reminded her, did Odette come back to herself from her thoughts.
I'm sorry.
I was focused on looking at the paintings just now, so I didn't hear what you said. Bastion still wanted to say something more, but Odette looked at the clock on the wall. It was already time for her younger sister to get out of school, and since the museum was very close to the school, she could go home with her. Bastion knew that Odette had a half-sister, but he had not expected their relationship to be this close. He could not help murmuring in amazement, How strange. By comparison, the relationship between him and his own half-brother was practically one of open hostility. In that case, let's head back. After all, they had already attracted more than enough attention. By evening, the streets of the capital were especially crowded. Before leaving, Odette refused Bastion's offer to drive her home. She did not want to cause him any more trouble, and besides, that would make her younger sister feel uncomfortable as well. Thank you for your kindness, but we can just take the tram home in a little while. After being refused, Bastion did not insist and got into the car alone. He watched Odette and her sister squeeze toward the tram. At this rate, they probably would not make this one. He had originally not wanted to involve himself in Odette's affairs any further, so he stepped on the accelerator and drove away directly. But halfway through the drive, listening to the constant honking outside, he thought again of Odette being pushed out of the crowd and of her face reddened by the cold. Bastion hesitated and let out a low sigh. Then suddenly, he turned the steering wheel and made a U-turn back. He had intended to give the poor sisters who had missed the tram a ride home, but to his surprise, the platform was already empty. He truly had not expected that they had actually managed to squeeze onto the tram. Bastion looked in the direction the tram had gone. This woman was even stronger than he had imagined. A few days later, the Royal Polo match officially began. Odette arrived at the venue as promised. The moment she stepped inside, she was stopped by a strange woman.
Odette, right? Nice to meet you for the first time.
I'm Sandrine. Odette greeted her politely. Sandrine first praised Odette's performance at the royal ball, then deliberately hinted that her relationship with Bastion was far from ordinary. Before Odette had time to respond, Sandrine stepped straight toward her again. There was a warning in her tone. Please be sure to remember my name. From now on, we are bound to see each other often. After saying that, she turned and left with crisp decisiveness. Odette froze for a moment. She said her piece and then left. What a strange woman. Odette withdrew her thoughts and spoke calmly with the noble ladies present. Even though it was her first time at such an occasion, she did not show the slightest panic. She could even be called the very model of a lady. Suddenly, she caught sight of a familiar figure. Prince Clavis, Captain Bastion's younger brother. At the sight of the beautiful Odette, Prance's eyes instantly lit up. According to etiquette, Odette should have stepped forward to greet him, but just as she was about to go over,
Her hand was caught by someone.
turning her head, she saw that it was Bastion. I was just about to go greet your brother, Captain. You needn't concern yourself with such things. Hearing this, Odette froze slightly. Immediately afterward, Bastion raised his left hand, and Odette had no choice but to take his arm. After doing this, Bastion deliberately turned back to look at the younger brother behind him. As if silently asserting his claim. Odette did not understand Bastion's intention, but it was obvious that the relationship between the two brothers was indeed very poor. And at this moment, in a corner not far away, there was a woman trembling all over with jealousy. Sandrine suddenly understood Princess Isabel's nearly mad behavior better than ever, because no one understood better than she did what it felt like to desperately want to possess Bastion. Bastion gently tucked the loose strand of hair at Odette's cheek behind her ear. Leaning close to her ear, he whispered, "Your gown is beautiful today as well." Odette put on a radiant smile on the surface, but inwardly, she was marveling at this man's superb acting. To outsiders, such a sweet scene truly made the two seem deeply in love. At this moment, Sandrine suddenly entered Bastion's line of sight and gave him a slight nod, signaling for him to come over. Bastion understood what this partner of his meant, so he used the excuse of having forgotten something and temporarily took his leave of Odette. Odette, of course, would not press for more. Since her escort had left, it was the perfect chance for her to go to the powder room and touch up her makeup. Bastion came to the terrace, where Sandrine was already waiting for him. "Is there something you want to say to me? Since you chose Odette, shouldn't you have told me in advance?"
And these words
were heard by Odette, who was looking for the powder room in the corridor. That voice belonged to Sandrine, who had greeted her earlier. Then she heard Bastion soothingly say, "Odette and I are nothing more than partners in a simple transaction, each taking what we need. Can you swear to that?" Bastion refused Sandrine with a smile, saying that is a bit too much, isn't it? Perhaps realizing she had lost her composure, Sandrine ended the topic in a joking manner. "Sorry, I was being too sensitive, but you must understand, no matter who encounters something beyond their control, they will feel uneasy." Then Sandrine brought up the subject of remarrying after divorce. Odette had not expected that, although this was a contract marriage, Bastion had actually already planned even what would happen after the divorce. She turned around, unwilling to keep listening, but unexpectedly, the next sentence from Sandrine made her stop in her tracks. "During the day I can give you to Odette, but the nights must be left to me." These words happened to be heard clearly by Odette as she passed by at that moment. Such words also made her feel utterly humiliated. Odette forcibly suppressed the anger in her heart, telling herself that it didn't matter, that she would not be affected by this sort of thing. And at this moment, faced with Sandrine's questioning, Bastion remained silent for a long time, never answering. Sandrine finally could not help but remind him aloud, but Bastion suddenly shook off her hand. Then, addressing her as Countess, he said, "I'm afraid that would be inappropriate." With a flawless false smile on his face, "I don't think our friendship has sunk so low as to become nothing but pure desire." Sandrine gave up pressing him, though a trace of restrained bitterness flashed through her eyes. Yes, what an incredibly precious friendship. Just as he had done to Odette earlier, Bastion touched Sandrine's hair back and said, "Please maintain your dignity. That way, you will look more beautiful." After saying that, he turned and left neatly. Sandrine watched his retreating figure. Although she knew Bastion was only using her, that ambitious man had never given her even a shred of genuine affection. But it didn't matter, as long as she could stand by Bastion's side. Sandrine was willing. The royal polo match officially began. According to the usual pre-match ritual, the female companion was to give the male companion an item carrying her feelings, thereby wishing him good results in the upcoming match. But Odette remained motionless for a long time, because she did not have a single thing on her that truly belonged to her. Bastion saw her hesitation. He raised his hand and pulled off his own ribbon. "Although I've never liked this sort of empty ceremony, considering our special situation, let's follow the rules." The next second, a lock of hair on one side of Odette's head slowly fell loose. "This alone is enough. I will definitely treasure it well." The polo match began. The much-anticipated Bastion took the field, and the ribbon tied to the end of his mallet was especially eye-catching. Odette felt somewhat uncomfortable. Such a gesture was like a declaration of possession. The match was in full swing. Just as the final ball was about to roll into their own goal, Bastion turned the tide, blocking the rolling ball with a move ordinary people could hardly accomplish. With a sharp crack, he struck with gathered force, sending the ball into the opposing goal. One goal decided victory, and the blue team won. The spectator stands instantly erupted in cheers. Bastion always managed to surprise people. The victorious man turned back to search for his fiancée in the crowd. Odette was applauding too, but her expression remained excessively calm. Bastion was somewhat surprised. Odette met his gaze and gave him a polite nod. At this moment, a trace of disappointment seemed to flash through Bastion's eyes. Did she mean that she would only fulfill the duties that belonged to her? In the lounge, Sandrine stared darkly at the polo mallet Bastion had used, feeling only that pink ribbon was unbearably glaring. That man had always clearly looked down on aristocratic formalities, yet today, as if showing it off, he had tied Odette's ribbon to the mallet. Sandrine yanked the ribbon off in one motion and fiercely threw it into the muddy puddle in the corner. That ribbon, which had stuck in her throat throughout the entire match, had finally been returned to the place where it belonged. Odette had originally planned to continue attending the celebration banquet afterward, but a burst of commotion caught her attention. Her gaze followed the crowd, and Odette froze at once. She quickly walked forward, wanting to confirm whether she had seen wrongly, but the truth was just that cruel. Looking at the ribbon that had been thrown away as soon as the match ended, Odette finally realized that her value for being used today had already come to an end. She had even foolishly just been thinking that after attending the banquet, she would leave together with Bastion. Odette forced out a smile and made a request to the noblewoman beside her. "Excuse me, madam. Please tell Captain Bastion that I have something to attend to and will be leaving first." Walking alone down the street, Odette felt somewhat desolate. If not for the royal subsidy, she would not have had to cooperate in this ridiculous performance. If only there were a better way to earn money. As she thought this, Odette stopped in front of the notice board in the square. She was attracted by a job posting for a governess. On the other side, Bastion and his colleagues walked out of the polo grounds. He had not expected Odette to leave without saying goodbye. That was unlike something a woman who always cared so much about etiquette would do. A colleague suddenly interrupted his thoughts. "Look, Bastion, isn't that your thing?" There lay Odette's ribbon quietly in the mud. Bastion was startled. Just earlier, he had heard Lucas say that Sandrine had gone to the lounge. Could it be that Miss Odette left because she saw this? Bastion's expression suddenly darkened. Under the astonished gazes of those around him, he walked toward the muddy puddle. He bent down and picked up the ribbon, now covered in filth. It was his possession. No matter for what reason it had come into his hands, it was still something that belonged to him and that he ought to protect. The man had madly fallen in love with his elder brother's fiancée. By chance, they met on the street. He even chose to secretly follow her. Prance felt that he had to seize this opportunity when everyone looked down on her, and even his brother cast her aside like a worn-out shoe. If he were the one to stand on Odette's side, then he would surely be able to win her. At this moment, Bastion still knew nothing of his brother's dangerous thoughts. He was sitting at home flipping through a women's clothing catalog. Such behavior shocked the butler beyond measure. Could it be that the master was planning to start a women's clothing business? Little did he know that Bastion was calculating what he should buy for Odette. Whenever he heard the nobles call Odette the beggar princess, a strange discomfort would arise in his heart. The butler, who had just left, suddenly hurried back again. "Master, This is bad. There's a man insisting on seeing you. Duke Dissen, who was let in, wore a smug expression. Ever since he had run into Odette walking very closely with this man on the street the day before yesterday, he had come up with a new idea for squeezing out money. Bastian could not be bothered with his nonsense. Get to the point, Duke Dissen. Faced with his arrogant attitude, a flash of anger crossed Dissen's eyes. A bloodline from a lowly junk dealer dares to harbor designs on an imperial princess. I will never marry Odette to you.
Clearly,
Dissen had mistaken Bastian's feelings for his daughter for love. Those words do not sound at all like something a man who sold his daughter off as a gambling stake would say. If I hadn't let you off that day, this score would not have been so easy to settle. Bastian's expression was cold, without the slightest warmth. It was completely unlike the rumor Dissen had heard, that he had already gone mad with love for Odette. But Dissen still felt that he was the one in the right. Don't think that just because you have backing, you can treat me this way. But children's marriages have always been decided by their parents, and if you want to marry her, you must have my consent. So, if you want to be worthy of my daughter, shouldn't you show a bit of proper sincerity? Bastian said bluntly. You mean money, Your Grace. But don't expect to get a single coin from me. In the future, you may marry your daughter into whatever kind of family you wish. But for now, His Majesty will not release her. You'd better behave yourself, and then I'll return her to you intact. Otherwise, after His Majesty's arranged marriage comes to an end. If rumors spread that she was defiled by a low-born man, then it will be difficult for you to sell her for a good price. Faced with this string of insults, Dissen flipped the table in humiliation to vent his anger. Bastian only felt that this person was beyond saving. He signaled for the butler to show him out. And also, contact Shafi Boutique for me and arrange a time. I want to have a few dresses tailored. 2 days later, Odette received another invitation letter from Bastian. There was not a single unnecessary word in the letter. Only the time, the place, and a brief signature. Odette was somewhat puzzled. It would have been nice if he could have told her exactly what they were going to do. In 18 years, this girl had never once stepped into a luxury shop. Yet when having a high-end gown tailored for the first time, she did not show the slightest embarrassment. Even the owner, long accustomed to beautiful women, could not help but be captivated by her charm, and could not resist sighing. No wonder Bastian would make such an abnormal move. After taking her measurements, the owner excitedly told Odette that there was a ready-made dress in the shop that would definitely suit her perfectly. She hurriedly turned to fetch the dress, but failed to realize that Odette, dressed only in a thin slip at this moment, was feeling somewhat cold. Hearing a light cough come from the fitting room, Bastian raised his head and hesitated for a moment. He reached for the blanket placed beside the stool, and the next second, Odette heard Bastian's voice from outside. I brought you a blanket. Odette froze, then spoke somewhat awkwardly, just about to explain that what she was wearing now was very improper, but the man seemed already to understand her situation. Don't worry, I'll turn around. Odette paused. She reached out and lifted the curtain an inch. Sure enough, just as Bastian had said, he had already turned his head away and had not taken an extra glance. Odette quickly pulled the blanket from Bastian's arm and softly said thank you. Yet this sudden kindness made Odette feel a few traces of resistance in her heart. Could it be because he disliked the sound of her coughing very much? What the two people involved could not understand, the dress shop's proprietress, who had seen it all before, could. From afar, when she happened upon this scene, the proprietress, who had seen countless nobles, saw through the affection in Bastian's heart at a glance. She knew that nothing proved a man's sincerity more than his willingness to spend money on a woman. At the end of a day of shopping, as package after package was loaded onto the carriage, Odette inexplicably felt that Bastian's expression carried a subtle hint of pleasure. In just one afternoon, he had spent several years' worth of a commoner's living expenses. Before parting from Odette, Bastian did not forget to remind her that if Duke Dissen were to see these things, it would probably be rather inappropriate, so it would be better to keep them first at the Countess's residence. And that was exactly what Odette had been planning. The brief conversation ended. Bastian then turned and left coldly, but Odette's feelings were somewhat complicated. She lowered her eyes and looked at the carriage full of gifts. Although Bastian did this for the sake of her dignity, no matter what, these things were ultimately bought for her. Thinking of this, Odette politely thanked Bastian's retreating figure. Captain, thank you. Hearing this, Bastian's steps paused slightly. He turned back and met her eyes for a moment, and after a long while neither of them spoke again on the way back. Odette's gentle yet restrained expression remained lingering in Bastian's mind. As soon as he returned to the residence, the butler hurried over with a panicked expression. Master, you're finally back. It's bad. Her Highness the Princess has secretly come to see you. The next moment, Isabel, dressed in a maid's uniform, came running over with delight. She threw her arms tightly around Bastian, all in order to come before this cold man. Confined by the Emperor in a separate residence, Isabel had even drugged a maid and changed into the maid's clothes. She had deceived everyone and gone through countless hardships to escape, begging for this chance. All just to see Bastian one more time, and to tell him with her own lips, Bastion. I have already become a woman who is willing to give up her position as Imperial Princess for you, a woman who loves you deeply. But faced with such an Isabel, Bastion only wanted to distance himself as quickly as possible. A royal guard will find you soon, so please leave my residence before they arrive. Even at this moment, Isabel still could not understand, and even began to resent her status as a princess. Is it because of the huge difference in our status that you refuse to admit your feelings? Looking at this woman who had lost her reason, Bastion unexpectedly thought of Odette again. Even when she was humiliated and treated like a beggar, she still did everything she could to preserve the last of her dignity. But Isabel clearly had everything, yet did not know how to cherish any of it. Bastion strode forward. It seemed he had to say something to make her completely give up. Your Highness, no matter when I showed you patience, it was only because you are His Majesty's daughter. Isabel raised her head in disbelief. Her eyes met Bastion's gloomy gaze. Please thank your Imperial father, Your Highness. Isabel's heart was on the verge of collapse. She had clearly given so much for Bastion. She had even disregarded her parents' wishes. She had lowered her status to come to him, but he, just then, loud knocking pounded against the door. It seemed the royal guards had arrived even faster than expected. Isabel fell to her knees weakly. Please, Bastion, don't treat me like this. But Bastion walked straight over and pulled the door open. What I can give you has only ever been a soldier's loyalty. The next moment, the door hinge let out a creak. Isabel lifted her head in despair. The captain of the guard appeared before her. As expected, Her Highness the Princess is here. Bastion calmly explained that when he returned, the princess had already been here, and he did not know what had happened. But since the people from the guard had already arrived, he could take his leave first. Unexpectedly, the captain stopped him. You must come back with us as well, Captain Clavis. This is His Majesty's order, and he specifically instructed that no scene be made. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Odette returned home after finishing her tutoring work and told her younger sister that she had found a decent job. Maybe soon, they would be able to live somewhere far away from their father. And if she had an income, she would no longer need to keep pretending with Bastion. But just as Odette thought life was finally taking a turn for the better, she heard terrible news from her sister. Their father had already learned of Bastion Clavis's existence and had personally gone to trouble him. The moment she heard this, Odette could no longer sit still. She grabbed her cloak, turned, and ran outside. She was going to find Bastion and apologize right away, not knowing that Bastion, implicated by Princess Isabel at this very moment, had already been taken into the palace and was currently enduring the queen's towering fury. The queen made no distinction between right and wrong, only deciding that this lowly man, handsome only in appearance, had bewitched her daughter. He had even dared toy with the royal family. Bastion Clavis, tonight, you should disappear from this world forever. The queen mercilessly slapped the face of the Empire's most handsome man, only because she was madly convinced that Bastion had bewitched her daughter. For Bastion, Princess Isabel had cast aside all dignity, yet what she received in return was her beloved's cold rejection. Only after the emperor persuaded her did the queen leave in rage. Faced with such an out-of-control daughter, the emperor also had a headache. After investigating, although he already knew that Bastion had nothing to do with Isabel's escape, he discovered something else. Apart from the marriage arrangement the royal family had made for him, this ambitious man, Bastion, had also been meeting frequently with the Duke of Laville's daughter. So at this moment, the emperor asked him bluntly, aside from Princess Isabel, the Duke of Laville's daughter, that is Odette, Captain Clavis, do you have any other women? Bastion, however, did not panic at the emperor's sudden questioning and instead bowed meticulously. Your Majesty, please give your order. Whatever the next command may be, I will obey. The emperor was not surprised, as expected of the man commoners called the Empire's hero, and even so, the emperor knew very well. Since that was the case, he would never be merely a loyal hound that only knew obedience. Then exactly what kind of shackles could tame this vicious dog that even wanted to bite its master? The emperor spoke coldly. I know you have no feelings for Isabel, but no matter what, because of you, she has damaged the Empire's dignity. There can be absolutely no mistake in the Empire's political marriage, so I won't beat around the bush with you. You must marry immediately. In truth, if I harden my heart, then the next day, the corpse of the hero Bastion could appear in a dark alley frequented by prostitutes. But in consideration of the military merits you have rendered to the Empire, I do not wish to wipe you out completely. So, I want you to complete the wedding within 2 months. Although I originally chose Odette to be your wife, it no longer matters as your wife. But now it no longer matters. Even if you elope tonight with the Countess, I can understand. Hurry, and let the world see an affectionate Mr. and Mrs. Clavis. Only in that way, the future crown prince husband of Princess Isabel will not be displeased because of you, so long as you maintain a perfect marriage for 2 years as agreed. Whether it is power or title, whatever you want, I will give it to you. My order, do you understand it clearly? She was a peerless beauty who made countless young men fall for her. Yet she had the most absurd parents in the world. Not only did they go behind her back to trouble her fiancé, the moment they got home, They were also fighting with her younger sister over the last bit of money. Listening to the argument coming from inside the house, Odette's expression grew more and more weary, but reason told her that she could not act impulsively. She hurried upstairs. There she saw her father snatch the private savings from her sister's hand. Faced with his daughter's endless resistance, Dison backhanded her across the face with a slap. Odette cried out her sister's name. Stumbling, she rushed over. Anger made her completely lose her reason. She suddenly reached out and shoved her father. Losing his balance, Dison fell down the stairs. Along with the sound of gold coins scattering, there was a loud crash. There was a loud crash as the man slammed heavily onto the floor, his head suffering a severe blow, and blood instantly staining the floor red. The next day, Tyra cried so hard outside the hospital that she could barely breathe. Not because of their father's injuries. What truly frightened her was whether she would be taken away for intentional assault. Odette calmly comforted her. Their father had already been drunk last night. He would only think that he had missed his footing and fallen. So, Tyra, forget about this for now. But even so, Tyra was still panicked beyond measure. What if someone really had seen it in the stairwell? At a loss, she even wanted to turn herself in. Facing her younger sister, who had lost her reason from fear, Odette sternly rebuked her. That was only self-defense. No one will send you to prison, and even if they do, I will go in your place. As an older sister, Odette would do everything in her power to take responsibility for her younger sister. At this moment, Tyra's tears could no longer be held back. She cried herself hoarse in her sister's arms. Odette must be the best sister in the world. Meanwhile, Bastian, having mortgaged 2 years of his marriage to the Emperor in exchange for corresponding power, was also overwhelmed because of this matter. Time was extremely tight. He had to decide on a bride within 3 days, although many women were willing for the reward. Now that matters had come to this, after weighing it again and again, Bastian still felt that Odette was the most suitable choice. He had to see Odette as soon as possible. At this moment, the butler handed him a letter from Mrs. Terrii. The letter detailed Odette's recent situation. Duke Dison had fallen from upstairs while drunk and had become a cripple paralyzed from the waist down. At this moment, Odette in the hospital was keeping watch by her father's bedside. Days of strain had left her face shockingly pale. Thanks to Mrs. Terrier's help, she had finally gained a brief moment to catch her breath. At this moment, only despair remained in Odette's heart. She had thought life was finally turning around, but now, because her father was paralyzed, it had all turned into bubbles. Could there be a life worse than this? Suddenly, a figure slowly approached. I also heard about Duke Dison's accident. Odette raised her eyes toward the newcomer. It was Bastian, but his true purpose was not to offer sympathy, but to press for marriage. Because of the Emperor's order, he urgently needed a wife who could maintain a perfect marriage arrangement for 2 years. The man's words were cold and without any warmth. I think you are currently the most suitable candidate. In exchange, I will pay you a sufficiently generous reward. The wedding must be held 20 days from now. As Bastian spoke sentence after sentence, Odette, already haggard, only felt even more humiliated. So, are you now trying to use money to buy a wife? Bastian did not deny it. I think this is the most cost-effective contract at present. If it must be said, you can regard it as me giving you a 2-year job. Looking at the contract in her hand with its clearly listed terms, Odette suddenly felt dizzy. Staggering, she collapsed onto the bench. You really are like a philanthropist actually coming to the hospital especially to introduce me to a job. Bastian did not become angry because of her sarcasm and still looked calm and detached. I only want to complete His Majesty's order within the designated time. Although Odette is the first choice, you are not my only option. I do not think this marriage is a bad thing for you. After marriage, you will not have to sacrifice your whole life caring for your paralyzed father. This is not a marriage in the true sense. We only need to maintain the appearance of a perfect married couple in public, and at other times, we can leave each other alone. As Bastian's words fell, Odette gradually calmed down. As long as she signed this contract, her father would be sent to a high-end sanatorium for the rest of his life, and her sister would receive the best education. At the same time, she herself would receive a generous sum and start her life over after 2 years. This truly was the best choice for Odette right now, but even so, Odette still could not help asking, is your deal with His Majesty the Emperor really worth going this far for? Bastian's answer was ambiguous. Then, please give me 1 more day to think about it. But Bastian had no patience to wait. He handed her a fountain pen and asked Odette to make her decision immediately. If you want to refuse, I will respect that. Odette gripped the pen tightly, as if grasping a turning point in fate. She could not refuse. She told herself that this was indeed a mutually beneficial arrangement, and that it was not essentially different from the choices she had made before. Whatever happened in these 2 years, it would not be worse than it was now. With trembling hands, Odette wrote the final stroke on the paper. Using the last trace of her strength, Odette could no longer hold herself up. Exhausted in both body and mind, She fainted in front of Bastion. Bastion caught her, lifted her into his arms, and strode into the hospital, looking at the restrained yet strong girl in his arms. A nearly imperceptible strange emotion flashed across his eyes. The arms holding her tightened unconsciously as well. Please treat this patient immediately. Tell the director she is Bastion Clavis's fiancée. Yesterday, she had only just sold herself away with a single contract. And today, she was actually going to get married. Though it was clearly only a contract marriage, her husband told her, for the wedding items, choose only the most expensive, not the most suitable. Even their marital home was a luxurious villa built overnight. Such extravagance made even the well-informed countess unable to resist teasing. Odette's husband was probably even wealthier than the world imagined. Odette smiled bitterly. That man's way of doing things was simply beyond what ordinary people could predict. And so, in the Empire's ceremonial hall, the wedding began. Odette wore white gauze, dignified and elegant. Under the priest's witness, the two stood facing each other. The next second, Bastion lifted her veil, lowered his eyes to look at her face, and in his heart there arose a trace of feeling over how fate toyed with people. Odette, who had been used as a wager that night, had now truly become his wife. In front of everyone, this newlywed couple, each with their own motives, shared a kiss symbolizing unwavering fidelity. By the time the ceremony ended, dusk was already near. Beneath the setting sun, the newlywed couple each harbored their own thoughts. Bastion suddenly spoke. Do you like it? Odette did not react at once. She did not know what exactly he meant. The sunset, or this wedding. I mean this house. After all, during the 2 years of our agreement, you will be living here. Odette froze slightly. Because of Bastion's work, it was impossible for him to live at the suburban villa every day. That meant, before she could ask for confirmation, Bastion continued, I will only come back on weekends. The moment she received this confirmation, Odette's eyes lit up at once. That meant she only needed to spend weekends with Bastion. For a contract couple, this was simply the best possible news. She immediately perked up and said happily to the partner before her, Please rest assured, during this time, I definitely will not cause trouble. If there is anything I should pay attention to, please just say it. Bastion had never seen Odette show such a relaxed and happy expression. Was it merely because she would not have to stay with him every day? Thinking this, he unexpectedly found it a little amusing. After pulling back his thoughts, he said lightly, Just do not let your family come in here again. Of course, the same goes for my family. Odette paused, still wanting to ask something more, but Bastion had already noticed that calculating gaze outside the door. He wrapped an arm around Odette's waist, deliberately appearing intimate. All right, the banquet has begun. Smile a little. Do not forget, before the wedding is officially over, you must look like the happiest bride in the world, like a bride happier than anyone else. Odette followed Bastion's steps, but there was still one question in her heart. If we really make it through these 2 years smoothly, then when the time comes, on what grounds are we supposed to divorce? Bastion's steps paused slightly, but he did not answer the question directly. Instead, he asked Odette in return, What do you hope it will be? It was clearly a contract marriage arranged by power. Yet the one discussed and judged was often always the weaker party. Only because under the image Bastion deliberately created, Odette seemed to be adored to the extreme. As a result, people who envied her appeared one after another. Even the maids in the residence whispered behind her back. They even tacitly assumed that she had gotten pregnant before marriage and risen in status through the child. Odette, however, did not care about these words. She even laughed self-mockingly and said that they had no need to hide it. She would not be swayed by rumors because time would prove everything. She only hoped that during these 2 years of contract marriage with Bastion, unnecessary emotional expenditure could be reduced to a minimum. But reality was often harder than imagined. At night, Odette was preparing to sleep on a large, unfamiliar bed, but the door was pushed open without warning. Bastion walked in with a hint of fatigue, striding forward. Odette panicked instantly. The contract clearly states that we only need to act as husband and wife in public. What does it mean for you to come into my room now? You seem to have misunderstood. However, before Bastion could finish speaking, Odette hurriedly interrupted him, her tone becoming more and more urgent. Isn't it only natural that you prepare a separate room for me? Faced with her raised voice questioning, Bastion fell silent. He stepped toward Odette and pulled her into his arms. Lowering his gaze, he met her eyes, stubborn and unwilling to yield. Bastion let out a soft breath, gave up explaining, and directly showed everything through his actions. He walked toward the wall and with a gentle push, revealed a hidden door there. Inside, there was even a secret passage. At the end of the passage was another room belonging to Bastion. In order to perfectly play the role of a loving newlywed couple, he had arranged everything in advance. Although this was his residence, there were simply too many servants in the mansion. On a wedding night, what newlywed couple would sleep in separate rooms? The misunderstanding was finally cleared up, but it also made Odette feel a little embarrassed. At this point, Bastion did not stay any longer. He tactfully said goodnight and then closed the hidden door. Yet at this moment, a trace of emotion that should not have existed inexplicably passed through his heart. In recent years, Bastion's career had been steadily soaring, and Odette, having become the mistress of the house, had also grown increasingly busy. Ever since the two were married, banquets and invitations had never ceased. Busy with their own affairs, they only met formally on weekends. No matter how unwilling Odette was in her heart for Bastien to return, in front of all the servants in the residence, she still performed the proper appearances flawlessly, and Bastien did the same. They practically carried absence, makes the heart grow fonder to the extreme. Seeing the master drag his wife into the room the moment he got home, the maids all blushed one after another. Who would have thought that the moment the door closed, Bastien's expression immediately darkened? But the reason for his anger this time left Odette stunned on the spot. Just because the necklace his wife wore was worth less than 5 million, the man became angry. Without another word, he pulled her into the room, his tone full of anger. I gave you so many pieces of jewelry. Could it be that only this one suits your taste? Odette was slightly startled before calmly explaining her actions. She calmly explained her actions, saying that even if she was about to attend a banquet, this would not be inappropriate. Besides, today's outfit was not suitable for overly extravagant jewelry to begin with. But this calm defense only made the nameless fire in Bastien's heart burn even more fiercely. Do you have any idea who is being entertained tonight? Those people are the very ones who once saw you at your most miserable, and you should make it absolutely clear for them to see that after your marriage, your circumstances have already undergone a complete transformation. You are no longer that daughter your father treated as a bargaining chip, but the wife Bastien, married openly and honorably. At this moment, the man had not realized at all that his actions had already gone beyond his usual rationality. He was absolutely convinced that everything he said was only to make this marriage look more respectable, only to make his wife more perfect. Yet he overlooked the private desire he had hidden deep inside. During these 2 years of contractual marriage, Bastien hoped to turn Odette into a splendid and breathtakingly beautiful woman. From now on, no one would ever again be able to see in his wife the shadow of that once disdained beggar princess. What should have been an evening banquet where the newlyweds entertained relatives and friends instead saw the appearance of an ill-timed woman. In order to look at Bastien a little longer, Sandrine came to his residence in place of her younger sibling-in-law. On such an occasion, even if Sandrine's ambition was completely obvious, Bastien would not publicly embarrass her. And Odette, who knew very well how Sandrine felt about Bastien, did not reveal the slightest bit of disappointment. "Welcome, Countess Renata." Hearing this, Sandrine turned around, and in just an instant, her gaze was drawn to the huge and dazzling gemstone at Odette's neck. Even though she knew Bastien had never been stingy, this gemstone necklace was still far too extravagant. The flames of jealousy burned wildly in Sandrine's heart, and she even suspected that this pitiful beggar princess had personally asked Bastien for it. But she did not know that Odette felt almost nothing for this necklace at all. If not for Bastien's forceful insistence before the banquet, she still would have felt that the simple little gemstone was more suitable. As the dinner began, the guests politely praised Odette's beauty and how well-matched the Clavis couple were. Odette had originally been a little worried, but now it seemed that everyone meant no harm. The butler informed Bastien that there was an urgent phone call. Bastien had no choice but to leave the table temporarily. As soon as he left, the atmosphere at the banquet suddenly fell silent. One of the captains suddenly brought up Duke Disson to Odette. "I heard your father was badly injured. Is he all right now?" Odette paused in surprise. Though she did not understand why he suddenly asked about this, she still answered politely. However, upon hearing this, the man suddenly let out a sneer. "No matter what, everything now is thanks to Duke Disson. If not for what he did that night, you might not be living such a luxurious life now." For a moment, the atmosphere became extremely awkward, and the nobles all watched with the mentality of enjoying a show, waiting to see what Odette would say next. The red-haired man wanted to advise the person mocking Odette to stop while he still could, but Sandrine at the side laughed. "It sounds like there's an interesting story the rest of us don't know. Hurry and tell it so we can hear it too." Odette could feel that man staring at her. Perhaps he simply wanted to see her panic and desperately try to cover up the scandal, which was why he had deliberately said those words. Precisely because of that, she could not allow everyone harboring such thoughts to get what they wanted. Odette's expression appeared exceptionally composed. She openly spoke of that past event which others saw as shameful and humiliating. "That's right, that night at the casino. My father and I met all the officers present here for the first time. My father lost me to Bastien as a gambling stake, and Bastien, as a man who valued honor, sent me safely home in the manner of a soldier. Of course, he was only able to do so thanks to the support of several of you present at the time. So even today, I am not only grateful to my husband, but also equally grateful for your mercy back then." Odette's words smoothly explained everything, and they also gave everyone present plenty of face. The black-haired captain was left speechless for a moment. She actually dared to seize the initiative first. This way, naturally, no one else had anything to say. The atmosphere once again sank into silence. Sandrine suddenly smiled and applauded. "What a romantic story. But if the person who won Duke Disson that night had been someone else, then wouldn't you now not bear the surname Clavis?" Sandrine looked toward Odette, who was forcing herself to appear calm and elegant. She was very much looking forward to how Odette would continue smoothing things over next. After a long while, Just as Odette was about to speak, a hand pressed down on her shoulder first. No matter who had won that night, the outcome would not have changed because I would have taken her by force. In front of everyone, the man kissed his contract wife. The nobles present all side in admiration at Bastion's romance. Only Sandrine's face darkened, her intense jealousy making it impossible for her to maintain even the most basic noble composure. Odette knew all too well in her heart that even though she was Bastion's wife in name, in Sandrine's eyes, she would forever be that unpresentable interloper. After the banquet ended, Sandrine followed Odette into the room without the slightest courtesy. She said that compared with the boring tea party, she wanted more to tour Bastion's new residence. She spoke freely and critically about the decorations here. She even pushed open the master bedroom door directly without the mistress's permission, as if she were Bastion's newlywed wife. She even used a commanding tone, demanding that Odette arrange the place according to her preferences. This string of unreasonable actions finally pushed Odette past the limit. Even if she was only a contract wife, Sandrine was meddling far too much. Countess, I hope you can observe the most basic etiquette of being a guest. Of course, I'll be careful in front of guests. I can't let you embarrass Bastion, but when we are alone, there's no need for that. Because I'm not stupid enough. Because I'm not stupid enough to talk about manners with a worker whose term only lasts 2 years. Odette's face was full of disbelief. She had not expected Bastion to lay this matter bare to Sandrine. Catching the stiffness on Odette's face, Sandrine let out another cold laugh. You don't actually think no one else knows about your contract, do you? Sandrine laughed so hard, she bent over. After playing the role of a wife for so long, you really do start to develop a certain illusion, don't you? Odette, Bastion is only using you, but just in case, I still have to remind you of one thing. You'd better not dream of securing a place that should belong to me by getting pregnant. This is the limit of what I can tolerate. The man who had taken the initiative to propose non-interference after marriage now regretted it. After the banquet ended, Odette sat before the dressing table, repeatedly thinking about the words Sandrine had left behind. Who would have thought that the door would suddenly be knocked on? Bastion, changed into his nightclothes, walked into the room. Odette was flustered for a moment. Ever since the two had married, Bastion had never pushed open that door. Now that he had suddenly come over, could it be that something had happened? However, Bastion merely took a few steps forward, then suddenly paused and turned around somewhat unexpectedly. Odette could not understand his reaction at all. She happened to glance at herself in the mirror and froze in an instant. She had nearly forgotten that her nightgown was so thin it was almost transparent. So Bastion had seen everything. Blushing, she clutched her chest tightly, but Bastion's gaze remained calm. Could you turn your head away first? The man let out a soft sigh, and only then turned his head aside, looking straight ahead without letting his eyes wander. Odette hurriedly grabbed an outer robe and wrapped herself up tightly, and only then stood before Bastion again. And this late-night visit from the man was indeed because he had something to say. Bastion was not satisfied with Odette's behavior at the banquet tonight. Odette, now that you have married me, a commoner, you are now also a commoner. Your words and conduct should match the identity of a commoner. If you continue to put on such a proud posture in front of nobles as you did tonight, it will only invite others' ridicule and bullying. I do not want to see that pitiful look on you again. Bastion always liked to use the harshest truths to tear open the last bit of dignity Odette had left. But Odette's pride was inborn, and such words, when they fell upon her ears, hurt like knives. She was clearly being looked down upon, yet still maintained an appearance as if nothing were wrong, and clearly kept her proper boundaries in order to fulfill her responsibilities as Mrs. Clavis. Yet in Bastion's mouth, it all became something so unbearable. Odette suppressed her grievance and said coldly, I only handled the situation in my own way. It has nothing to do with my status. Whether I am a duke's daughter or a soldier's wife, I am still myself. I believe I have already upheld the dignity expected of the mistress of the Clavis household. When playing the role of your wife, I will obey you. But right now, I am Odette, myself unattached to any identity. Bastion was clearly surprised by her machine gun-like string of arguments. This truly was very much Odette's style. For some reason, that bit of dissatisfaction from just now was completely swept away at this moment. Although even he himself could not explain why, he had to admit that at this moment, she seemed to have become even more beautiful, seeing the man silently approach step by step. Odette also grew tense along with him. You, what are you trying to do? Bastion's gaze gradually darkened. No matter what, he suddenly no longer wanted to maintain this false, gentlemanly facade. Odette was already his wife, even if he went a step further. What was wrong with that? The man had clearly already fallen for this contractual wife. Yet at the very moment his desire was about to burst its banks, he stopped himself. The moment he thought of Odette leaving in 2 years, Bastion's reason, in the end, still overpowered his impulse. Not only because he foresaw that momentary lust would sooner or later bring him trouble. There was another reason as well. He did not want to add another scar to Odette's already difficult life. Whether out of sympathy or tenderness, Bastion put away that superior, commanding attitude. Perhaps he simply wanted Odette, who refused to let go of her pride no matter what, to live a little more easily. He told her, You only need to remember one thing. Compared with a glorious loser, I would rather be a ruthless winner. Odette repeated this unfamiliar sentence silently in her heart. Even if it means losing one's dignity, that does not matter. To win by any means necessary, that is the dignity of the Clavis family. She had only recently married the richest man in the empire, yet she had already begun doing things for her husband's next wife. After the Clavis family's dinner ended in a subtle atmosphere, Odette had no choice but to firmly keep Sandrine's words in mind, whether as the contract marriage servant Sandrine spoke of, or as the stubborn, fallen princess in Bastion's eyes. As the temporary mistress of this house, she had to do something for it. On this rare weekend without Bastion, Odette finally welcomed a moment of complete relaxation as well. She came to the gallery as long as she finished buying the paintings according to Sandrine's taste. The rest of the afternoon could be devoted to her own interests. After choosing the wall paintings according to Sandrine's taste, Odette was just about to leave when a special painting in the corner caught her eye. "Excuse me, may I buy this painting as well?" The receptionist explained with some difficulty. Although this painting did not yet have an owner, a customer had already taken a liking to it just now. Odette followed the receptionist's gaze and looked over, and it was actually Bastion's younger brother, Prance. The man opposite her was clearly surprised as well. "May I ask why you want to buy that painting?" As for the reason, of course it is because it is beautiful. Prance immediately became excited. Unlike those who described this kind of work as random smearing, Odette actually shared his tastes. "Then may I ask what you like most about this work?" Prance's excited reaction made Odette pause slightly in surprise, and only after a moment did she slowly speak. "This painting portrays the flow of light in a dreamlike way, and although it is hard to grasp, that is precisely why, like a dream, it is more beautiful because it is hazy." Prance's pupils trembled slightly. "Odette, buy this painting. One day, its value will be recognized by the world. I would be very happy to give it to someone who truly knows how to appreciate it. There is one more thing. May I ask if you would be willing to have a cup of tea with me?" Out of courtesy, Odette accepted her husband's brother's invitation. What she did not know was that such a move would only make Bastion even more displeased. His contract wife was chatting and laughing merrily with his own younger brother, and the man who witnessed the scene from afar had a face that completely darkened. Bastion even went so far as to put aside his official business and take a detour to the bookstore Odette often visited. Just as Odette was enjoying this rare moment of leisure, a man's hand suddenly tapped lightly on the table across from her. "Hello, miss, may I sit here?" Without even raising her head, Odette rejected this stranger's attempt at conversation. "I'm sorry, that is my husband's seat." Unexpectedly, the man across from her directly pulled out the chair and sat down. Odette was slightly startled, and just as she was about to rebuke the rude visitor, she looked up, and it was actually Bastion. Bastion said he was merely passing by. "But what about you? Why have you come here? I do not seem to have received any notice that you were going out. Indeed, I did not report my whereabouts to you. I received word that you would not be returning to the villa this weekend, so I wanted to move the gallery painting selection ahead of schedule. Is that all?" Odette fell silent. She knew that Bastion did not have a harmonious relationship with his family. At a time like this, bringing up Prance might only backfire, and if she really had to explain everything clearly, it would also involve her previous conversation with Sandrine. She truly did not want to tell Bastion that she was actually doing this for the woman who would become his new wife in 2 years. "Yes, that is all. After buying the paintings, I came here." Yet Odette's deliberate concealment made Bastion feel a burst of irritation. Without realizing it, his tone also carried a trace of displeasure. "Then did you come here for anything else? I truly did not expect, madam, that you would tire so quickly of the villa's life of luxury and begin acting as you pleased again." Odette did not understand. "Are you blaming me? I merely went out once, and that has become such a serious fault that you have to mock me for it. Besides, this arrangement was also adjusted according to your schedule." Bastion stood up impatiently. "Surely you do not think that our statuses are equal? Do not forget, I am not only your husband, but also your master." Bastion's words were merciless and cold, as though he were secretly sulking because he could not get a frank response from the other person. The man pretended to be asleep, waiting for his wife to lie down, but his wife, at the side, was repeatedly struggling with her thoughts. This weekend, Mr. and Mrs. Clavis had been invited by the Admiral to attend a social event, and this also meant Odette had to play the role of Mrs. Bastion even more perfectly. That night, Odette, unable to hold her liquor, was still forcing herself to endure. Yet Bastion needed only one glance to notice that something was off with his wife. Considerately, he took away the champagne she had not finished and signaled that Odette could return to the guest room to rest first. As for himself, he continued socializing until late at night before returning to the room. He had thought that by this time, Odette should already have gone to sleep, but when he pushed open the door, the room was completely empty. While he was puzzled, a pleasant singing voice suddenly came from the bathroom. Unconsciously, he followed the sound into the bathroom, and the scene before his eyes was almost enough to make one lose oneself. By the vaguely visible edge of the bath, Odette had her eyes closed as she softly sang, her black hair cascading like a waterfall over her snow-white back. For a moment, Bastion stared in a daze. Suddenly, Odette's eyelashes trembled lightly, and she slowly opened her eyes, turned her head, and saw Bastian standing not far away. Their eyes met, and both were startled. At that moment, a burst of conversation came from outside the door. There seemed to be people in the corridor. Bastian had no time to think and rushed toward the bath, covering Odette's mouth with one hand. Odette was extremely confused by Bastian's sudden appearance. She truly did not understand why this man had walked into the bathroom while she was bathing. Yet Bastian's expression was full of disdain. "This is not only your guest room, is it? Do you expect me to tell the owner of this house that my wife and I are only in a fake marriage and trouble them to prepare another bedroom for me?" Usually calm, he seemed inexplicably a little irritable today. Without waiting for the other party to explain, Bastian strode toward Odette. Odette felt a jolt of alarm, afraid that he was about to do something again. She was just about to apologize when Bastian turned and walked toward the window behind her. He slammed the window shut, then left the bathroom in anger. In his frustration, he pushed open the bedroom window, and bright moonlight poured down. Yet in his mind, that faintly visible figure from moments ago surfaced once again. Even his unfathomable eyes rippled with emotion. Only after a long while did Bastian finally come back to himself. He let out a long breath. "Man, admit it. You want to have her all to yourself. You have fallen for her." After finishing her bath, Odette struggled with her thoughts for a long time before quietly walking into the bedroom. By then, Bastian was already asleep. Looking at the man's peaceful, sleeping face, Odette's expression suddenly became resolute. Secretly, she made up her mind that she would never shed a single tear for this contract marriage. She turned off the bedside lamp and silently walked out of the bedroom. Not until dawn was beginning to break did Bastian turn to look at the space beside him, only to find it empty, and his heart suddenly tightened. He was worried that Odette had run out of the room on her own and might invite gossip. He hurriedly got up, only to see on the sofa in the sitting room that curled-up sleeping figure. This woman would rather squeeze herself onto a narrow sofa than sleep in the same bed with him. Helplessly, Bastian tugged at the blanket Odette had found from somewhere and pulled it over her. If he woke her now, she certainly would not obediently go sleep on the bed. He had wanted to carry her back while she slept, but the motion of being lifted woke Odette up. Suddenly realizing something was wrong, she did not care to listen to any explanation and immediately began to struggle. This caused Bastian, who was holding her, to stumble.
Wait.
Stop moving. His footing slipped. If Bastian had not struggled desperately to steady himself, he would almost have dropped Odette to the ground. Bastian was annoyed to the extreme. Could being held by him really be such an intolerable thing? He threw her back onto the bed, and his tone was full of displeasure. "Odette, that is enough." The man who had been rejected by his wife again and again finally could not hold back. Filled with indignation and unwillingness, he pinned his wife down on the bed. Unexpectedly, this was met with undisguised hostility from her. "What are you trying to do?" Bastian's heart suddenly sank. Odette had always faced him with this distant, rejecting attitude. Yet that day, she had been able to show such a brilliant smile to Prance, whether out of spite or for some other reason. Right in front of Odette, Bastian straightened up and untied his robe. "Go on, what was I doing?" Odette was both embarrassed and nervous. "What you are doing now is not within the terms of our contract." Yet before she could finish, the man before her kissed her without the slightest restraint. A trace of confusion flashed through Odette's eyes.
Why?
"Surely you have not forgotten. I am your husband." Odette raised her voice, emphasizing the conditions they had agreed upon in advance. But at this moment, Bastian avoided the subject. "Odette, we are still guests in the Duke's house. If you speak so loudly, it will not be good if they hear." Odette lowered her voice, but Bastian had no intention of stopping there. Even though Odette was still suppressing her voice as she begged for mercy, this man seemed to have completely lost his reason. Just at the moment she was on the verge of collapse, Bastian's earlier words suddenly surfaced in Odette's mind. That is right. She could not just sink like this. Just as Bastian had said, no matter when, one had to think of every possible way to win. Her husband wanted to fulfill marital duties beyond the contract, and the woman finally could no longer remain calm. Yet the way she refused him was unexpectedly bold, perhaps because she had accurately judged that he responded to softness better than force. Odette cupped Bastian's face with both hands. "Please, I beg you, do not do this." Bastian had never seen her yield and plead like this. After a long while, he let out a deep breath. He actually stopped moving closer. He picked up a blanket and threw it over Odette, who was on the sofa. Turning his back to her, he silently walked toward the bedroom. He only left behind one low sentence. "Odette, this time you win." Early the next morning, the couple went together to the Duke's outing. The men and women moved separately, yet Bastian remained somewhat absent-minded the whole way, even though he chatted and laughed with the Duke along the journey. Odette's figure lingered in his mind from beginning to end. Meanwhile, Odette, resting by the brook, was the same. Recalling Bastian's transgressive behavior this morning, it seemed she had no choice but to reassess the relationship between them. While her thoughts were in turmoil, she suddenly saw a cluster of rare flowers by the bank. If she gave them to the Duke's child, She would certainly like them very much. Taking off her high heels, lifting her skirt, Odette stepped into the brook, wanting to pick that distinctive cluster of flowers. But a gentle breeze brushed through her hair, and the necklace around her neck fell into the water. She searched around for the necklace, and finally found it beside a stone several meters away. Just as she was about to walk over and get it, a figure stepped directly into the brook and picked up the fallen necklace for her. Odette lifted her head in surprise, but should he not have been with the Duke? Yet Odette was not the only one surprised by Bastion's appearance. Even he himself felt surprised. After seeing Odette from afar, he had unconsciously walked over. In front of all the nobles, the man ran toward his contract wife. The nobles present all revealed knowing, ant-like smiles. Only Bastion himself knew his heart had already gone out of control. Bastion slowly walked closer to Odette, who was standing in the stream, and put back on for her the necklace that had just fallen into the water. Everyone around us is watching, so cooperate a little. Looking at Odette's delicate, beautiful face, her quietness at this moment instead made Bastion feel an even stronger desire to possess her completely. In any case, she could not propose terminating the contract, because if she did, her life would only become even more miserable than before. Given his advantage in this contract marriage, could he stop maintaining the appearance of mutual respect and instead do as he pleased? Ignoring the gazes of those around them, Bastion impatiently and with ulterior motives pulled his wife into his arms. She waited outside to have lunch with her husband, but then that countess, her husband's lady, suddenly inserted herself. Even though she clearly knew Odette was waiting for Bastion here, Sandrine still hypocritically invited her to go along. Odette forcibly suppressed the displeasure in her heart. With a slight bow, because this is where we agreed to meet, I will take my leave of you here. I wish you a pleasant day. After saying this, without waiting for Sandrine to respond, Odette sat back down on the bench behind her. This behavior instantly enraged Sandrine as well. It is truly surprising that a lady of royal blood could be so rude. Since when has the wife of a mere naval officer been able to be so rude to a countess? Odette appeared very calm. If I were the wife of Captain Bastion Clavis, and you were Count Renata's wife, then I would indeed have committed a grave offense. But that does not seem to be the relationship between us, does it? Even now, you do not seem to regard me as Bastion's real wife, but rather think that position should have belonged to you. In that case, the person standing before you now is the Duke's daughter of pure royal blood. So why should I bow my head to you? Sandrine was so shocked that she could not speak. And then Odette's questioning fell once more. Please tell me, what exactly is it that you want? If you wish me to be the wife of a naval officer, then I will apologize to you for offending a noble lady. But if you still wish to continue maintaining the status of Mrs. Clavis, then you must accept this attitude of mine, dear Countess. Must you not? So, do you need me to stand up and apologize to you now? Sandrine clenched her fists. In the end, she still lowered her head. Then just sit there and keep reading. Thank you very much for your understanding.
Goodbye.
Sandrine turned away in anger. Yet at the moment she left, she stopped her steps again. I hope you have prepared enough books, because your wait may be even longer than you imagine. In order to show Odette her methods, Sandrine ignored her brother's obstruction and forced her way into the naval base. Even though her brother had already told her that Bastion had suddenly received an urgent order and had gone with the admiral to the palace, Sandrine still refused to give up. When she saw the carriage sent by the palace outside the window, a rather good idea suddenly appeared in Sandrine's mind. She abandoned her brother and hurried toward the carriage. The admiral was very surprised. Is that not Countess Renata? What is wrong? Your complexion does not look very good. I am truly sorry, Admiral. I originally came to have lunch with my cousin, but suddenly I felt somewhat unwell and was just preparing to go back first. She pretended to be aggrieved and hesitated to speak, which immediately made the gentleman opposite her unable to stand by and do nothing. Then why not ride in the carriage with us? Although time is tight, on the way to the palace, we can drop you off near the Count's residence. Thank you so much, Admiral. From beginning to end, Bastion did not say a word. No one understood Sandrine's true purpose better than he did. Soon, the carriage set off. Bastion also began to worry about Odette's situation now. Although he had already sent a subordinate to deliver a note, she should understand that the Emperor's order was not something he could refuse. But in the current situation, if she happened to see this, it would definitely cause unnecessary misunderstanding. Bastion prayed faintly. If only they could just miss each other like this. However, things did not go as he wished. The carriage passed the road where Odette was, and she gently raised her head, then saw Bastion in the carriage, as well as Sandrine, who was wearing a triumphant smile. Surprise and confusion flashed across Odette's face, and all of this was caught in Bastion's eyes. She, who was always indifferent and rational, actually revealed such an expression as well. Watching her husband leave with another woman, even someone as calm as Odette finally revealed a trace of disappointment that she could not conceal. Even after a soldier delivered the note Bastion had left, she knew that the carriage sent by the royal family had come to take him on official business. But whenever she thought of Sandrine being inside as well, she always felt an indescribable vexation. After all, Sandrine was the woman who would replace her in 2 years and become Bastion's true wife. Odette searched her own heart and asked herself, After suffering so many blows from reality, had she still not seen things clearly? She knew better than anyone that the more sincere feeling she gave now, the more painful it would be when she lost it in the future, since she was destined never to truly have him. Then from the very beginning, she should not have fallen for him. Why, exactly, had she secretly looked forward to such things? Meanwhile, after finishing his official duties, Bastion was still puzzled by the expression Odette had shown half a day earlier. From beginning to end, she had always been rational to the point of coldness, yet today she had revealed such an unbelievable expression. And this also made Bastion decide even more decisively on that matter. He needed to move back into the marital home within a week, and that also meant he would be spending every day and night with Odette.